Hi, welcome. I'm Coach Julia. We're going to talk about setting the posture of the lift before you start it off the ground. This is really, really important and sometimes doesn't get the kind of attention that it needs, but being able to set your upper back and really find that extension and create an effective brace will save you a lot of heartache later on in the lift, right? If you see athletes that are starting to shrug early or do things with their arms early, sometimes that is because there's not sufficient tension in the upper back, so your body's trying to create that tension through your arms, right? So if we get better at being able to feel the right positions before you break off the ground, then you can really just utilize your legs to help you stand and move through the lift instead of trying to make all these adjustments happen in your shoulders. So let's take a look. So the first thing we have to identify is what is the appropriate action of the shoulder blade of the scapula in starting a lift off the ground, right? Your shoulder blades move in 4 different directions. There's elevation up, which is what we need when we start to pull on that bar. There's depression, which is down, which is what we're going to talk about when you set up for the lift. There's retraction, which is back. And then there's protraction, which is forward, right? They move in 4 different directions to make a complete circle. So a lot of times what I see is that athletes will set up for a lift and they will retract their shoulders. But let's think about a couple of things. One, once the bar needs to start moving overhead, we need that shoulder blade to both elevate and retract, right? We need that scapula to be able to help me move my bar up and back. If I'm already set up as far back as I can, I've reached my end range of retraction, I have nowhere else to go. I can't go anywhere else from there, right? Maybe I can go up, but I'm not going to be able to move the bar back behind me. To that same degree, when we get to this moment of extension, of that violent push, we need a reciprocal action of the shoulder. So what I mean by that is if I'm already pulled back, the opposite direction of where I can go, the reciprocal action of this is going to be forward. So if you're seeing athletes pull, right, and they're set up like this, and then they get to that moment of extension, and they kind of lose that shoulder position, they lose their chest, they're concaving forward, it's because they're not set up in their upper back correctly. So what we want to cue instead is depression of the shoulder blades, right, from here. Shoulder blades down the back. That way, when I get to extension, I'm going to get the reciprocal action of my scapula moving up, and then I can also have room to move it backwards. I get this retraction, which helps me move the bar back behind me. I like to practice this with athletes from the top down. Have them stand with their snatch grip or a clean grip, pull their shoulders down as far as they can away from their ears, and actively pull the bar towards their body. If they're doing those 2 things, shoulders down, and actively pulling the bar in, what they should feel is their lats. That's what we want. Those big muscles in our upper body helping to support the position of the barbell. Then from there, we can practice coming down the leg a little bit, maybe to mid-thigh, back up without losing that position. Again, depression and pulling in with the barbell. Oftentimes the tricky part is can they sustain that position as they're getting around the knee. So practicing just that with something like an RDL is really, really helpful. And then you can start to introduce that position from the floor, right? Making sure that they can find that same action in the shoulder blade when they start on the ground, and then that they can sustain it first through a short range motion, right? Can they get to the knee without losing that upper back position? Then can they get to mid-thigh without losing that upper back position? Then can they get all the way up to the power position without losing it? Right? So progressively, you're teaching them how to sustain this really extended thoracic position and keeping the bar proximal to their body through bigger and bigger ranges of motion. And once all of that is established, we can start to add in some dynamic movement out of that position, right? We've worked on sustaining that posture all the way to here, and then we have to understand where to go after that, right? So like we did with just establishing the pull, we can add a high pull to it next. You'll notice I started again with shorter ranges of motion. Can I sustain that position? Can I move explosively out of it? And then we work lower and lower down the leg. Can I sustain that position for a longer period of time and still move explosively out of it in the right direction? Next, you would apply this to the full lift. Top down, can they find that position? Can they move out of it explosively? And then can they land where they're supposed to? You'll notice I haven't added load yet to this equation, right? It has to kind of progressively go that way. Positions first, can they find it? Can they maintain it through big ranges of motion? Then can they add speed and transition from one position to the next quickly with the appropriate timing? And then can they do it with more and more weight, right? That's the way we get people to be successful, trying to get them to move weight right away before they've established these previous benchmarks like ownership of positions, transitioning from one position to the other with the right timing, with the appropriate speed. If that's not there, they can't do it with heavier weights. The thing to remember about the lifts is every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? If we are not set up correctly from the ground, it will be much harder to have success later on in the lift. If you're athletic and you're aware of your body, you can figure out how to manipulate your body in the bar to get it back into position if it was out of position first. But the more efficient we can become from the early stages of the lift, the more likelihood of success you'll have later on. Questions? Leave them in the comments below. As always, subscribe. I come out with these videos every week to help enlighten you to the sport of weightlifting. Also follow me on Instagram for more knowledge. See you next time.